Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, friends from out of town want to stay at my home and have me stay somewhere else while they're here. I'm 30 female. My boyfriend, who's 35, has two friends who live in another state. We'll call them Jack and Liz. They want to come visit us in our state with their 4 kids, ages ranging from 5 to 10. I live in the downtown area of our city, while my boyfriend lives about 1 hour away in the suburbs. My house is close to where I go to school full-time, about a 5-minute walk, and also close to where I work, 10-minute walk to my first job, 10-minute drive to my second job. I live with my 3 dogs, and because of my busy schedule, I have a dog walker come every day to feed them and care for them. When Jack and Liz come to visit with their kids, they're asking to stay at my house. Here's the thing though, they want me to leave my house so their family can stay there with complete privacy. I think it's also worth noting that I've never met or spoken to Jack or Liz before. They're my boyfriend's friends and not mine. Also, they're originally from our city, so they have their parents and family members who still live here. They seem pretty wealthy because mostly they tell my boyfriend that they are. Liz is a stay-at-home mom and has never worked before because Jack has had multiple inheritances from deceased family members, and he brags about his high-paying job. They also own about 10 rental properties that they collect passive income from. Believe they bought these houses with their inheritance. Before meeting Jack, Liz also did not work because her family is wealthy and supported her. The thing is, my commute to work and school, I have one or both 7 days a week, is over an hour each way from my boyfriend's house in the suburbs. I already have such long days that changing my commute to be over 2 hours a day, even for a week, is giving me anxiety with all the stuff I have going on between work and school. Also, I don't have anyone to walk my dogs at my boyfriend's house, and even if I were to hire a dog walker, he doesn't want a stranger having access to his house. Finally, it would just be really uncomfortable to leave my home, and I'm also nervous about having the kids running around my house when I'm not there and my home is not child-proofed. So, am I the jerk? My boyfriend seems disappointed in me because I'm not opening my home to his friends, and I'm already making a bad impression on them. He also thinks that I'm doing this because I'm deciding to not like them based on what I know about them, just from what I've heard from him. Stuff like they're always asking to use my streaming logins, but keep logging me out. When their dogs get old, they leave them at shelters so they can make room for new puppies. I don't think that this kind of stuff bothers me, but I think that even if it were my own friends making this housing request of me, I would tell them to get a hotel or stay at their parents' house. Edit. My boyfriend lost both his parents young, when he was 16 and 22, and he doesn't have siblings or much extended family. He considers his friends from high school as his family. I'm trying to be sensitive to his situation because essentially he thinks that I should be more accommodating to his friends since they are his family. Edit 2. Regarding their past actions with the family pets, I find it absolutely abhorrent. When I brought it up, I've been told that I am out of line because I don't have family or kids. My boyfriend thinks any criticism of their actions towards pets is a criticism of them as parents, which since I don't have kids, I shouldn't be allowed to voice opinions on stuff I don't know about. My boyfriend thinks they may have gotten rid of their dogs because of postpartum depression since they were both within 1 year of a baby being born. However, I still feel like this was a horrible thing that they did. Are they for real? I can't believe the audacity of anyone to ask you to do that, much less people you've never met before. Not the jerk. Tell them Airbnb offers full property rentals to suit their privacy needs. Not the jerk. Why can't they just go to your boyfriend's house and your boyfriend can stay at your place? It would make more sense that way. Asking you to exit your home to give privacy to people in your house sounds very entitled. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you give up your home for a week so they can stay there or not? Please let us know.
No, and I'd dump that boyfriend for even suggesting such a stupid thing. Why do people stay in relationships like this? I will never understand.
Am I the jerk for serving my sister-in-law dinner on a kid's plate? My husband and I have family dinners at our house every month or so with our family. I have some sets of fine china that I like to switch out between the seasons that I've inherited from my grandmother. When we have our get-togethers, I serve dinner on these plates. My mother-in-law compliments them every time. My sister-in-law, however, has made comments to me that they're not her style. I honestly didn't think twice about it until this past February when one of my plates was put in the sink broken. Chalked it up to an accident. In April, we had another dinner. This time, sister-in-law was carrying both her and her boyfriend's plates to the sink and accidentally dropped both. Again, no biggie at all. In May, she broke 2 more plates, and in June, she broke a plate and a cup. At this point, I was starting to catch on. I brought up these concerns to my husband and he brushed it off as accidents. I told my mom and she said that she thought my sister-in-law was doing it on purpose and got me a camera to put in my dining room. In July, we had a dinner and I had an opportunity arise. My mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and her boyfriend joined us for dinner. While our plates were still on the table, my mother-in-law asked how my plants were doing and I said that I'd show her. I told my husband to follow us outside so he could show her the plant that he's growing, leaving sister-in-law alone with her boyfriend. When we came back inside 5 minutes later, her plate was broken. When they left, I pulled up the camera footage. I saw her stand up when we walked out and peek around the corner, and then throw her plate on the ground. I kept this video for myself. That brings me to this past weekend. We had our family dinner and we were joined by my in-laws, sister-in-law and her boyfriend, as well as my parents, siblings, and niece. I served everyone, saving evil sister-in-law for last. I brought her food out on a child's plate with a sippy cup, and I got those kids' silverware with the plastic handles. She looked at me confused and said,
I think you mixed my plate up with your niece.
And I said, no, my niece is responsible enough to eat on a grown-up's plate. If you're going to act like a kid in my house, I'm going to treat you like a kid in my house. She tried to play coy, but I had my iPad ready and I played the video to everyone at the table. She started crying, swiped the kids' plate off the table, and stormed out. My in-laws both apologized and offered to pay for replacement plates, but I told them not to worry about it. Despite this, we still had a nice time. When everyone left, my husband told me that I was out of line and cruel, but I told him that this has been happening for months, and I've told him it was bothering me multiple times. It's Wednesday now. He's still being cold towards me, and I also got a text from my sister-in-law's boyfriend asking me if I would apologize to her because I really embarrassed her. I sent him the video again, and he left me on red. My husband just called me to ask if I was taunting her boyfriend because his sister called him crying that I was. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You're amazing. You have nothing to apologize for. Your sister-in-law has a lot of things to apologize for, though. OP. I do feel bad that I embarrassed her. I spoke with their mom today, and she and my father-in-law have my back and say that I should demand her pay for the plates, and if she doesn't, then they would. But I'm not going to make anyone do that. I got them from my grandma, so they were special to me. Money can't help the sadness of not having them back. Not the jerk. Your husband and sister-in-law's boyfriend are, though. You inherited those from your grandmother. Sister-in-law has something seriously wrong with her mentally. Who breaks someone else's plates just because they aren't her style? Who cares about someone else's plate? It's a plate and not her house. She's behaving like a kid. She deserves to be treated like one and called out. Does she display any other type of aggressive behavior towards you? She sounds jealous and is throwing a tantrum like a toddler. OP. We were totally fine before this. We've never been like super close, but close enough to grab a coffee and get our nails done together. I've been married into the family now for 6 years and I love my in-laws. She was mildly passive-aggressive in May when she asked if her boyfriend could live with us while they were having a small issue, but it was my husband that said no. But this would have been during the plate and cup breaking. Should I confront my friend for trying to steal my girlfriend from me? For some context, I'm 26, male. My girlfriend, let's call her Lily, is 25, and we've been together for 3 years now. The friend in question, Mark, is 27. Mark and I have known each other for about 6 years, and he's been one of my closest friends. He met Lily about 2 years ago, and they've always had a friendly dynamic. They joke around a lot and share similar interests, but I've never thought much of it because I trusted Mark. In fact, I always believed that Mark was one of the few friends I could trust implicitly around my girlfriend. When I travel for work, which is often, Mark started hanging out with Lily's group of friends. Initially, this was discussed with Lily, and it was a bit unusual for me, but I chalked it up to him trying to expand his social circle and looking for new friends. After all, he had a tough breakup a while ago and has been trying to surround himself with positive people. Plus, Lily's friends adore our relationship and have always supported us. I thought, what's the harm? Fast forward a few months, Mark has become a regular member of their group. Birthday parties, movie nights, Sunday brunches, he's there for all of it. Lily's friends, and Lily herself, have come to love Mark. He's charismatic, funny, and everyone enjoys his company. However, I started to notice that he was particularly close to Lily and another of her friends, Jess, who's 24. They'd frequently post pictures on social media, always sitting together at group events, etc. Once again, I chalked it up to them just being close friends. Lily assured me that she felt no attraction towards him, and I don't have any reason to doubt that, but my issue was more whether Mark was being genuine. However, things took a turn earlier this week. Lily and I were out of town for a weekend getaway, and Mark attended an event with Lily's friend group. Jess confronted Mark because she felt he was being overly flirty with Lily, essentially fawning over her if neither of us were around, and his behavior was making her uncomfortable. To everyone's shock, Mark admitted he had feelings for both Lily and Jess. While he promised to set boundaries and maintain distance, he also took a dig at me. He said that I was a people pleaser and that I was too nice for my own good. He insinuated that even if I knew about his feelings, I wouldn't do anything because I like being the nice guy everyone loves. Honestly, that hurt more than him admitting feelings for Lily. I always saw myself as genuine, and to have someone I trusted imply I'm merely putting on an act has shaken my confidence. Since he had started hanging out with Lily's friend group, we had gotten a lot closer, and he seemed more interested in getting to know me better. Lily and I heard about this from Jess, so I can't be entirely sure on the context, which is eating me up. I came home the other day and hung out with him, and he said nothing. He's continuing business as normal, as though I don't know what happened. I'm torn now. I appreciate his honesty, but I feel betrayed. I want to maintain our friendship, but I also want to protect my relationship with Lily. She does not want to see him anymore and feels betrayed because we had both genuinely believed he'd be a safe friend who would want to hang out with her for her. To clarify, no moves were made, but Lily mentioned he had asked a lot about our relationship when I wasn't there at the social events, and I'm left wondering what he might have done if we were in a rough patch, but that's all speculation. I'm seeking advice on how to handle this situation. How do I approach Mark? How can we rebuild trust, if at all? And am I wrong for feeling like Mark's comment on my nature was a low blow? Update. After gathering my thoughts, I texted Mark to address the situation. He played it down massively, saying he didn't remember the conversation and was certain it didn't involve Lily. He tried to spin the people-pleasing comment, stating it was a reminder to respect my boundaries because I might not assert them. A weird explanation given how the entire situation didn't involve me and Lily. But here's where things got even more tangled. 3 separate friends, including Lily, approached me at different points with an unsettling claim. They said that Mark had told people that I viewed my relationship with Lily as a short-term thing. This was utterly baffling to me. Not only is it untrue, but it's also a complete violation of trust. Why would Mark spread such a damaging rumor about me, especially when he knows how committed I am to Lily? I also confronted Mark about another lie from last week that made me look bad in front of Lily's friends. He admitted to the falsehood, but tried to assure me he'd corrected it the next day. After checking with the person involved, it became clear that Mark hadn't set the record straight as he had claimed. Through all of this, not a single apology came from Mark. He kept repeating that it was a misunderstanding. The fact he claims no memory of such recent events is deeply concerning. Reflecting on our friendship, a pattern is emerging. Mark has always been transitioning between friend groups for as long as I've known him. I never thought much of it, but now it seems he rarely retains any long-term friends from these groups. Could this be a repeating pattern of his behavior driving people away? It's heartbreaking. Mark has been a trusted friend for over 2 years. Understanding that he might have been manipulating situations and spreading false narratives about me is gut-wrenching. I've shared everything with Lily, and she's backing whatever decision I choose to make regarding Mark. It's hard to reconcile the friend I thought I knew with the person he's revealing himself to be. Any advice on navigating this would be appreciated. It's a tough road ahead. I'm not going to talk to Mark anymore, and I might let him know beforehand. Reading all of this again makes me feel comfortable in that choice, but in the moment, I'd wondered if he was right and if all of this wasn't a big deal. Update. Post-confrontation, I have not spoken to Mark. Our last conversation over text was me expressing my deep-seated concerns, primarily about catching him in a lie just a week prior. He claimed he had rectified that lie by apologizing to Jess the day after. When I pressed him on why he had apologized to Jess and not me, the person he had actually wronged, he evaded the question. Instead, he focused on producing proof of the apology, which he later said he must have given snap or in person, an evident lie. His response to everything was downright baffling. He even suggested that Jess and Lily had orchestrated the confrontation with an intent to drive a wedge between us. No remorse. No acknowledgement of my emotions. Ironically, he showed me a text he had sent to Jess the next morning, indicating how enlightening their conversation had been, yet he claimed to have forgotten it. I chose text as the medium for confrontation because I feared he would deny everything outright if we met in person. I wasn't sure I could maintain my composure if he lied to my face. The whole interaction has left me reeling. I felt gaslit and minimized. I had secretly hoped that maybe, just maybe, he was mortified and didn't know how to face me, but his response shattered that hope. Lily made an observation that really put things into perspective. Throughout the duration of our friendship, Mark seemed to perpetually float between friend groups, typically due to issues revolving around a girl. In one instance, he split from a long-term relationship, and in another, distanced from a friend group because a girl chose someone else. The only consistent friend he had was someone from Lily and Jess's circle. Here's the kicker. Mark believes they're dating, while she is adamant that they aren't and has no interest in pursuing a relationship with him. She has since severed ties with him as well. I know the popular sentiment might be, you should have seen the signs. And yes, hindsight is 20/20, but I genuinely believed in our friendship. It's hard to accept that what I was perceiving as genuine might have been contrived. Lastly, to address some comments that have labeled me as a wuss or a pushover. Empathy and trust in friends aren't weaknesses. I value relationships and believe in giving the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't make me weak, it makes me human. Everyone has their breaking point, and I've found mine. The silver lining is that he's now out of my life. I've realized that self-respect is paramount. I'm fortunate to have someone as supportive as Lily by my side. She's proud of how I managed this ordeal, and contrary to some comments, values my empathy and perspective. We've had deep discussions about this entire situation, and she acknowledges the difficulty of such confrontations. Let's see. Mark cozies up to OP's girlfriend, talks him down to her friend group, undermines their relationship, puts her against her friends, and then lies to OP about it. And OP wants to salvage the friendship? If anything, Mark undersold just how much of a people pleaser OP is. Man, I need to find some friends like you. Guys with hot girlfriends who won't bat an eye to me moving in on them. No, but in all seriousness, he's totally right about you. Neither I nor my girlfriend would ever allow something to get to this point. Boundaries exist for a reason, and you need to learn to set them. Allowing this kind of stuff to go on is why people get cheated on. To any guys reading this, if your friend starts trying to hang out with your girlfriend all the time and you allow it to go on, don't be surprised when she cheats on you. I think I'm destroying my family, and I'm not handling it well. I'm a 25-year-old male with a wife of 2 years. We have a beautiful daughter together who we accidentally had when we were 18. No regrets, obviously. She's 6 right now, and she and my wife are everything to me. I work in a dangerous field. It pays well and was something I got into when we found out she was pregnant. I make good enough money that my wife can pursue her dream of doing an online business now that our daughter is in school. My childhood best friend joined me in this field. We were both directionless after high school, so we jumped into this together, and he was my bro for life. I say this because I saw what happened to him on the job a couple of weeks ago. A mistake was made by one of our fellow coworkers, and it resulted in his passing. He left behind a girlfriend of 1 year and a daughter as well. I had to break the news to his girlfriend on my own, and it was tough. I told her I'd make sure that whatever her and the kid needs, I would be there. I've already assisted in bills, and I've been by a few times to console her. With this, I've also been hitting the gym to keep my mind off of things, while also letting my anger and frustrations empty themselves. Because of this, I haven't been home a lot lately. Last night, I got back very late and my wife was up, asking where I've been and what's been going on. I told her that I had just been working long hours and been stressed from work, so I've just been taking drives to relax. She mentioned my friend's girlfriend came by the house on Saturday asking where I was, so she didn't believe me. She asked, "Do we need to talk about something?" And I just said, "No, everything's fine." And she kept pestering me about why she was at our door and something not adding up with me lately. Something went off in my head and I started raising my voice and said, "There's nothing to talk about, we're good." And my daughter came out of her room because she heard us going back and forth. My wife looked at me quietly and sternly said, "I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to get your crap together. We need you, and it feels like you went missing, and I don't feel like I can rely on you." And she took our daughter with her and she left. I've been crying a lot lately, and it's just not something I want them to see. It's not something I want to talk about or really know how to. It's the hardest thing I've had to deal with in my life to this point, as I'm not a super emotional person. Most of my life, I really had to look over myself, as my dad wasn't around and my mom had her own issues that prevented her from being a great mother, but I don't blame her for it. Usually I've been able to figure it out, but I also always had my bro, and now I don't. His own little family needs help too, and I just feel like crap really hit the fan, and I don't know if I fully processed it. That's not even including the fact that I don't know if I'm losing my own family at this rate. I don't feel comfortable about so much right now, and I don't think it's fair to put that on anyone else's either. I don't know if it's an ego thing or me trying to be the man, but truthfully, I don't even know. It feels better typing this out and just posting this to the internet. Feels like I'm at least getting it out. So thanks, random internet strangers. Edit. I want to make this clear. I did reach out to my wife and asked her to come home and if we can talk about what's been going on, and she agreed, but that I have a lot of explaining to do, which is fair. Also, thrilled that this managed to somehow turn into me cheating on my wife. Nice, Reddit. The few responses that are helpful and respectful I do appreciate, just too many here are chronically online and try to spread their misery. Did you tell your wife about the contributions you're making to your late friend's family? She's asking for communication. Give it to her. Explain how his passing made you feel, how breaking it to his girlfriend made you feel. Tell her you've been blowing off some pressure by hitting the gym. She is your person. She's the one who vowed to be there for you. By keeping this in and trying to do everything yourself, you're preventing her from being able to support you, and in the face of this event, you do need the support. You may have had to look after yourself before due to parents not being able to, and you may have figured that that would always be the best case, but you have someone who loves you, who's asking you to explain so she can help. You're not good, you're grieving. You're having a tough time. Your prolonged, unexplained absences are an issue for your wife. You are not good. Hiding that fact won't change the fact. Be vulnerable, be open, trust in your wife who loves you, that she will support you in this tough time. Please, for your sake and theirs. There's nothing to be gained out of you shouldering all of this alone other than resentment and miscommunication, and you're going through a tough enough time without that on top. Update. So after begging my wife and daughter to come home, I told her I'd lay it out and I'd be an open book. They got home later Monday night and we had a late dinner. I just wanted to spend some time with them, especially my daughter, so we put her to bed kind of late. After that, my wife and I sat down. I told her the full rundown. Initially, she felt disappointed I kept it from her, saying that wasn't fair to her and I need to be a better communicator. She didn't care about the money really, just more so how I kept her in the dark for so long and that I don't need to tackle everything on my own, which I appreciated. She then asked me to really talk about it and how I'm feeling about everything, trying to understand where I'm at and basically consoling me. We did that for about an hour and there were a few tears, but again, I wasn't trying to be an emotional slab. She understood why I've been distant and been getting home late, and now it makes more sense why she came around and she forgives me for all of that. I told her I'd like to keep helping them and that we have more than enough money to do so until we can either get a pay cut, sue, or all of the above. I would also like her and the kid around more, and she understands how close I was with them and how I see them as my sister and niece at this point. She was close with the girlfriend years ago too when we were younger. She agreed on all of that with the condition I drop down to 4 12s a week. She said if we can afford to help them, I can also afford to take more time off to explore therapy and spend more time with our family. She's been wanting to talk to me about it for a while, and this was the condition she wanted because she did feel like it was a bit of a betrayal. So I could tell that she was leveraging a bit, as she said, "We aren't supposed to have those kinds of secrets." And I just pulled her close and told her, I can do that. And we hugged and I gave her a kiss. We laid on the couch for a bit, just talking, and I definitely felt better putting it behind us. So now, next week, I'm looking into both a grief communications therapist, since she wants me to work on communicating better, and she said she'll want to attend every once in a while too to see how it's going. She also asked to keep an open mind to moving to a different part of the company for safety reasons down the road as well. I know some requested a little update, and now that everything's settled, I figured I'd share it. Despite some of the awful people that were replying and accusing me of cheating, there were a good number of people who were trying to be helpful, and I appreciate that. You take the good and bad, and with that, I hope this maybe helps others. Close your bank account? Yes, sir. So this happened a few years ago, but I love telling the story. Background. I work at a local credit union, similar to a bank, in back office support. Most of my customer contact is through the online chat and message systems. I have never worked in a branch. So one day I get a message from this dude demanding to know where his new debit card is. Not asking, demanding. I check and let him know that it was mailed about 2 weeks ago and he should have had it by now, but I would be happy to mail him a new one. Or he could come into a branch and we could print him a new one on the spot. He asks to have one mailed. I verify his address. He was less than a 10-minute walk from one of our branches, maybe a 5-minute drive, but whatever. You want to wait for the mail, be my guest. And I mail him a new card, thinking that was the end of it. Nope. A week later, he messages back, enraged that he's not gotten his card yet. I let him know it'll take 5 to 10 business days. They are sent regular mail, we have no tracking on them, etc. And he's welcome to come into a branch to get one printed right now if he'd like to. He was not a fan of that. Tells me that I personally have caused him to get fees. I look at the fees, they have nothing to do with the card. They're from online sites linked directly to his account and routing number, and that I need to refund all $200 in fees. This would be in addition to the $100 we've already refunded for the year. Here's the thing. If you ask me nicely, I'll probably move heaven and earth to get fees refunded, even if we've already refunded the max limit for you that year. We are all human, I get it, and I do feel that some fees charged are stupid and morally objectionable. If you demand I refund you fees, the odds of those getting refunded just dropped by 99%. So I tell him that I will not be refunding his fees, and he goes off on me and tells me to just close his account. So there's a few things we need to send a request to close an account. The account has to be positive, his was, but barely, have no loans on it, including credit cards, not have a balance of over a certain amount, and we need their address verified, which he had done when I sent him a new card. So I say, I'm sorry to see you go, but I understand that you need to do what is best for you financially, and I send the request to close his account, and then I wait. A week or so later, I get a call from a teller at a branch. They have this gentleman in front of them outraged that his account was closed and asking what happened. I let the teller know that he sent a request to close the account, so I sent the request to our back office to be processed. She relays this, and he starts calling me a liar, saying that he never requested this, and he for sure never asked me to close the account. Not sure if he thought that we just delete messages and have no records. Anyway, I take screenshots of our messages and send them over to the teller and listen as she shows him them on her computer. I can hear her trying not to laugh as she goes, "Oh, well, yes," and she thanks me and ends the call. Later, she messaged me telling me that he apologized for going off and we reopened his account and that she has never had to stifle laughter that hard before. Entitled neighbor wants copy of my grandma's will. When my grandma was diagnosed with cancer, she opted for no treatment. She had watched her husband go through chemo, radiation, and surgery, and he was miserable the whole time. She didn't want that for herself, and her family supported her. Over the next year, she gifted items to family and friends, told us to write our names on the things we want, take what we wanted, etc. There were no conditions. No, you can't have that. It's a family heirloom meant to go to Aunt and her kids, or to Dad and his kids. We all knew what those items were and who they were going to, so that was easily settled after she passed. The house was inherited by my father, who very suddenly and unexpectedly passed away 2 weeks later. I inherited the house at that point. The next door neighbor, who we'll call Todd, came over several times, upset that he and his kids, 21 and 19, weren't invited to my grandma's funeral. There wasn't one. We were all too busy reeling from my father's passing, weren't presented with a copy of the will. It only included family members. And he knew Grandma loved his kids like her own. She didn't. She complained about them coming over all the time, stealing her water to fill their pool, and she had to tell them to stop calling her Grandma. He wanted to know if I would allow his kids to go through the house to see if there was anything they'd like to take to remember her by. Okay, first, dude, my grandma passed 4 weeks ago. And dude, my dad passed 2 weeks ago. I thought he was awfully rude, but I offered to let them go through the boxes I had packed that I was planning to donate, and he was offended. I mean, mortified. He said his daughter and son had their hearts set on some items that were family heirlooms, and I literally laughed at him. I explained they were family heirlooms and would be staying with me, and 2 of the items had already gone home with my brother. He said, "My kids were her family, and she would have gifted those to him. They should have been included along with everyone else when everything was divided up." Keep in mind that none of us even knew this guy or his kids other than the neighbors next door. They were never at any gatherings that were held at her house, and the only time I ever heard her talk about them was when she complained about them, especially when she caught them using both her hoses to fill up their pool and then came over complaining because she had put locks on the outdoor faucets. Luckily, Todd's house was in foreclosure, and he moved away about a year later. Am I the jerk for telling off my soon-to-be sister-in-law after she was mean to my wife? For the past 2 days, my wife, who's 37, and I, 47, were visiting my wife's parents' house along with all of my wife's siblings. She's the third of 5 kids, as well as their partners and kids. Both my wife and her twin niece and nephew, via her sister, have birthdays the past week, and so each person has gotten a day to celebrate their birthday with the whole family, and yesterday was the day my wife's birthday was celebrated. Among the guests were my wife's oldest brother, Dan, who's 42, and his new fiancée, who's 35, Tina. Tina will be Dan's 3rd wife. She also happens to be Dan's former mistress. Both of Dan's marriages and a previous engagement all ended due to Dan's cheating. Tina is a fitness instructor and must be very into healthy eating because every single meal we've had so far, she's had to comment on how big or small her portions can be for each dish. I am very thin and have no interest in working out, though Tina has made many comments about how middle-aged men need muscle-toning workouts, that seemed to be directed at me and one of my brothers-in-law, and my wife is beautifully plus size. For dinner yesterday, my father-in-law and I made a big dinner with lots of dishes that my wife loves. The whole point was for my wife to indulge herself and enjoy her favorite foods, and indeed she did. Later that night, my wife wanted a snack, so she went to grab something from the kitchen while I was in the bathroom. I overheard Tina talking to my wife and nagging her about how she was already hungry again. My wife said something to the effect of, "It's none of your business." And as I was coming out of the bathroom, Tina told my wife,
You know, it's easier to keep your partner interested when you can be your best self.
My wife was clearly very hurt by Tina's comment, so I told Tina, "That's rich coming from you, because no amount of time spent on your appearance will ever keep Dan interested for long." This was apparently the wrong thing to say. Tina got very upset, told me I was being a jerk, then stormed off to her and Dan's room. Dan later came out and told me I was being a jerk and that it was low to comment on his cheating. I told him that the comment Tina made about my wife was disgusting. Obviously, my wife is very happy with what I said. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Very well done for defending your wife. Unfortunately for Tina, what you said about Dan is likely to be true and they both know it. Sure, there's unpleasantness, but some people are not reasonable or kind and won't change their behaviors unless you make it sufficiently unpleasant for them. Tina will hopefully think twice before saying anything like this to your wife again. My cousin is having a baby and demands I hand over my savings. I, 24 female, am a bit paranoid when it comes to money. I didn't grow up in poverty, but times are tough, and the idea of living paycheck to paycheck makes me uncomfortable. It's important to mention that now I have a stable, good-paying job, but I struggled a lot during college since my parents weren't able to save enough for my college fund, so I worked bad jobs and I was constantly exhausted during those years. I still ended up in some debt, and I want to be free of it ASAP. It's also important to mention that I come from a pretty religious family. When I landed this job, I decided to start an emergency fund. I put aside a few $100s every month so that, in case of anything happening, I get sick, lose my job, etc., I will not end up in more debt or even worse. The only people that know about it are my sister, who also plans to start her own emergency fund after she graduates and lands a good job, and I. I 100% trust my sister, so I think my aunt or someone else overheard us talking about it. Now the issue is this. My cousin, 22, male, his girlfriend, who's also 22, is pregnant, and they decided to keep it even though they know darn well they can't afford it. None of them have a stable job, inheritance, or anything. A few days ago, he came to ask me to give him my emergency fund since he's having an emergency. I was speechless. I asked him what was he talking about, even though I knew, but I couldn't believe someone can have this audacity. He told me he knew I have some savings and he desperately needs them. He didn't even mention giving the money back. I told him those are my savings for when I have an emergency, but he pulled the family helps family card. I still said no. While I understand they are in a difficult situation, I still think it's not fair that I'm asked to pay for his mistakes. I told him they should think more about what they're going to do in the future and how they're going to support this kid if none of them have a stable income, and if I give them my savings, that money is only enough for a few months. I didn't mention not having the baby or adoption or anything, just that they are irresponsible for having a kid when none of them are financially stable. He eventually left me alone, but started to tell the rest of the family that I told him to not have the baby, which is not at all true. My parents and my sister are on my side, but the rest of the family has started to harass me and are calling me a godless jerk. So, am I the jerk for keeping my savings? Not the jerk. His lack of planning is not your emergency. This story is also a good example of how letting other people tell your story usually works against you. For the members of your family that you care about, I would reach out to them and clear up any misconceptions. Obviously, the people calling you godless are probably not the people you want around. You could even say that you meant adoption. I'm religious, and I don't know of anyone that has a problem with giving up a baby for adoption. Not the jerk. In my opinion, it doesn't matter who would tell this story. What they'll hear is, cousin needs financial help, and OP didn't help him even though she has the money to do it. Respectfully, that's just not true. It always matters who tells the story first. If his family thinks you are so awful, why aren't they handing over their cash? OP, I don't know if anyone else besides my parents has any savings, and I don't want to bring this up because I'm afraid I may give them another reason to harass me. Not the jerk and far from it. If you give him money, he'll probably come back asking for more. You earned your money. His kid is not your burden and not your problem. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her cousin? Please let us know.
Rule number 1 of having lots of money. Never tell anyone you have lots of money, especially if they're family.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.